is Challenges in Engineering Education in Virtual Era. The moderator for this event is Professor Partho Pratim Chattopadhyay. Professor Partho Pratim Chattopadhyay graduated in metallurgy in 1984, and he had done his post-graduation in the year 1989 from BE College itself. He did his PhD from IIT Kharagpur in the year 2000. Pardon me, yeah, he must have done it from BE College because it was 89. He worked in varied capabilities in academia and industry, notably served as the Dean of Faculty of Engineering for Bengal Engineering and Science University. Professor Chattopadhyay has supervised 19 doctoral scholars and published 179 papers in international journals. Since February 2015, Professor Chattopadhyay is serving as the Director of National Institute of Advanced Manufacturing Technology, erstwhile NIFFT at Ranchi. Professor Chattopadhyay has served Global Alumni Association of Bengal Engineering and Science University as member of the ad hoc committee from 2005 to 2007. He has been Joint Secretary in EC1 and Vice President in EC7. I now hand over the session to Professor Chattopadhyay.
Thank you, Kasturi, for your kind introduction. We are already delayed by 20 minutes. So without getting into formal words, I'd like to extend my heartiest thanks to the members in the panel today. We have with us Professor Shorit Das, Institute Chair Professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering of IIT Madras. We have with us Ms. Shukla Mistry, Executive Director, Indian Oil Corporation Limited and Refinery Head, Barauni Refinery. We have Professor Amitabh De, Professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT Bombay. We have Mr. Shouvik Sengupta, third year students in Department of Electrical Engineering of IST Shibpur. I will initiate with Mr. Shouvik Sengupta. Shouvik is a third year student in Department of Electrical Engineering of IIT Shibpur. Beside his academic pursuits, he is engaged in several other activities. To name a few, he is General Secretary of Art Club and Coordinator of Quiz Club of IST Shibpur. He is also the Cultural Secretary of Electrical Engineering Society. His major achievements include third position in Fandom Quiz held by Literacy Club, IIM Rohtak, and second position in Business Case Study competition held by Climatrix Crackers. He is recipient of the distinction and Ankan Ratna Award in art. His hobbies include art and craft and amateur astronomy. Shouvik, please join us and present your views.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful introduction. Good evening to the Honorable President of GABESU, Mrs. Anjana Ganguly Roy, the Honorable Director of IIST Shibpur, Professor Parthosarathy Chakraborty. Good evening to the Secretary Convener of GABESU and all the present alumni members of GABESU. And good evening to all the esteemed panelists, respected guests, and my dear friends. So currently we are discussing the recent challenges faced by engineering students in this virtual era. And I would like to point out some issues from my point of view. Now, before diving into the issues, I would like to answer a basic question. Why did any of us choose engineering as a subject? The answer is, through engineering, we wanted to gain some real life skills and in the process, also aid our personality development. Engineers are one of the most sought after people in all job sectors due to their problem solving skills, aptitude, and various soft skills which they gain during their course of study. Be it research, core, IT, or anything else, engineering was supposed to make us employable in any field of our choice. However, has this virtual mode helped us achieve that? Let us explore it in some detail. One of the main things which online education has bereft us of is the lack of industry interaction. In the present scenario, industry-related skills are as much as important as theoretical concepts. However, the fact that students can't even access the labs in college means, for example, say that a student like me of electrical engineering might finish one of my core subjects, say electrical machines, without having been able to see a real machine even for once. Not being able to attend any seminar or even get hands-on training at some facility just adds to the wounds. But engineering isn't just about what happens in the classroom. It's also about the interactions that take place outside the classroom. Be it some off-hour interaction with some professor on some interesting topic or a simple peer discussion in the hostels. All of it is important for the proper making of an engineer. The absence of any extracurricular activities like clubs or fests, which are the potter's wheel for the development of soft skills like time management, teamwork, public speaking, among many, take away many necessary attributes of a good employee. As such, an engineer is being produced who neither have any practical experience nor has the qualities of a good employee. This makes the job market more uncertain than it already is. However, if we assume for a while that industries will become lenient and pay importance only to online education, the problem of logistics framework strikes in. As per a survey, internet penetration remains at a mere 40% in India, with Ookla ranking the internet speed as 68 globally. The recent fact that the rate of internet services is being continuously increased by all operators doesn't add any ease to the already present troubles. Further, 40% of rural India still doesn't have any electricity, and most urban areas have frequent power cuts. States like Punjab or even a national capital of Delhi were power stricken just a while ago. Even to cite a personal example, I myself didn't have any electricity for the whole day today. And my internet connection is also very weak. Like I don't have any alternative to my Wi-Fi. And that is all while staying in Durgapur, which is the third largest city of West Bengal and a very big city at that. So we can all imagine that what might be happening in other small cities. And after all this, if we come to the teaching side, most professors struggle to explain concepts in the online mode due to a lack of proper tool and logistics. After all, one cannot replace a blackboard and chalk overnight. So if we sum it all up, a student is not sure of internet access. If one manages, then it's not sure the connectivity would be fast and stable and affordable. And even if the connectivity challenges are overcome, a student might be exposed to a class where he feels bored and might not understand anything. And at that, no one is at fault, but the present situation we are in. Then again, we can come to the medical concerns of online education. Like a typical class day is of around 8 hours, where the student has to continuously sit in front of a laptop or device. He cannot interact with any friends other than over some WhatsApp chat or a meet. Neither can you do anything by going outside the house. Now, surveys have shown that nearly 40% of present students suffer from some kind of depression, insomnia, or other such mental health issues. The depression is so high that in the recent news we have seen that students just say this on the Google Meet or any conference platform. They are in front of the teachers. There's a fear of that the teacher might do anything to them is not even greater than the depression they're going through. Further, if you come to the physical aspect, recently a whole new term called Zoom fatigue has been coined, which basically means burnout or tiredness due to prolonged exposure to video conferencing platforms. Other than these common effects like eye pain, then loss of mobility due to the long sitting hours, backaches, and other such physical problems are occurring students of all standards. And in a field such as engineering, where a large part of the job includes field work and use of eyesight, deterioration in any of these can adversely affect one's careers, no matter how academically pronounced one might be. Now, I listed many points, but does this mean that virtual education or the online platforms like NPTEL, Unacademy, etc., should all be removed? Well, the answer is no. Online platforms are indeed helpful in a way, but in developing supporting skills and capabilities for better employability. For example, like a student of electrical engineering, again like me, can learn MATLAB online, which is a very important tool in our field, but is not covered in a curriculum. One may also navigate through various reference resources on his core subjects. The online platform is also helpful for learning some extracurricular hobbies in the free time and for also some other activities. Now, returning to the question we asked earlier, that whether the online education has any disadvantage or advantages. So basically, engineering means to invent something new using the present knowledge. It includes discussion, theorizing, experimentation, observation, and improvement. As such, in a field where things are to be done with tools in hand, it's not at all feasible to teach students behind a single mobile screen. To conclude that difference between online education and the present of traditional offline education, I'll just give an example. A person might take some protein supplements to gather up some few deficiencies. However, it can never replace the real food he is eating. Similarly, online education can be a supplement to the offline education, but it can never replace the offline class education which engineering people have. Virtual and similar, and just as a person cannot live on supplements, in a core field like engineering, which requires tools to be in hand and requires practical experience, cannot survive just on online education alone. With this, I'd like to conclude my speech. Thank you everyone for such a patient listening, and also a big thanks to Kabesu for giving me this opportunity. Thank you everyone.
আনমিউট করতে হবে।
Professor Chattopadhyay.
Yeah. Extremely sorry. Thanks, Shovik, for sharing with us the challenges faced by the engineering students and your views as a student in dealing with these challenges. I'm sure that your views will be important inputs for the eminent panelists we are going to listen to. Now, I will invite our next panelist, Ms. Shukla Mistry. Ms. Mistry, I believe you are online.
Yeah,
Yeah, great.
I'm audible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so good evening to everyone.
Right. Ms. Mistry is currently Executive Director of Indian Oil Corporation Limited and Refinery Head at Barauni Refinery since 2019. After our successful tenure as head of Digboy Refinery. She has also worked in deputation with Qatar Petroleum at South Korea and then at Qatar for their LAB project for 2 years. Now we are all proud to know that recently she has been selected by PESB for the Director, Indian Oil Corporation. Ms. Mistry obtained Bachelor of Engineering, Metallurgy from Bengal Engineering College, Shibpur in 1985, and subsequently she obtained Advanced Diploma in Operation Management from ICFAI. Her career records the excellence in leadership in execution of projects of various sizes, ranging from 50 crore to 4,000 crore, from conventional to EPCC. Her illustrious profile is decorated with several prestigious awards and accolades. To mention a few, ET Prime Women Leadership Award in the category of Manufacturing and Operation for the year 2021, Scope Outstanding Women Engineer for the year of 2016-17, Petrotech Ujeshini Award in 2016, and many more. She has been personified as She Energy in the business world for her leadership as the first woman in transforming the energy sector of our country. To note that Ms. Mistry is also a popular badminton player and an ardent sport person. Ms. Mistry, please.
Yeah, first of all, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Good evening to everyone. My senior alumni, Director IIEST, Mr. Parthasarathi Chakraborty, and all the dignitaries for today's program, and all my alumni brothers who are there today connected with the web. Good evening to all of you. First of all, I wish happy Alumni Day 2021 to all of you. At the outset, I thank Mrs. Anjana Ganguly Roy, President of Global Alumni Association, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to connect with my alma mater through this association and occasion. I'm also delighted that the incredible job is being carried out by the association in doing with the vision to foster and legacy and branding of erstwhile Bengal Engineering College. Well, I completed my engineering in 1985. In fact, this initiative of GABESU is going to do a lot of things in the academic pursuit of the institute with financial and knowledge resources. I'm sure this initiative must be helping the student by learning through rich experience sharing. Today's discussion on the topics is present challenges in engineering education in virtual era is truly an area of challenge. The world as you see today is completely different than what we have seen during our college life. The challenges where we faced during our early days may sound to us now as fables. I remember my early days as a young girl coming from a very humble family from the remote village of Sundarban. The difficulty, the scarcity, the darkness were not very encouraging. However, with our grit and guidance, we reached to this stage. And when I joined Indian Oil way back in 1986, I thought this is my greatest opportunity as a woman to break all silos and showcase that women are capable and strong. My journey from being a metallurgical engineer to an inspection engineer, then project manager, and then to head to refineries of Indian Oil Corporation Limited has been enthralling. Going back to today's discussion is the challenge into the era of virtual classes and all. The challenges of the young generation has to face today are very different than ours. We never thought that we'll move outside our homes wearing masks, refrain from meeting each other, hugging each other, shaking each other, even getting closer to the person. COVID-19 has changed the global arena of working and operating. The pace at which technology developed and all of us have adopted it as a part of our daily lives is incredible. It has been faster by a decade at least. We have entered into the virtual era. The era which was there in time is sci-fi movies or fiction stories. The major loss suffered by the section across the global during these last 1.5 years have been the students. Suddenly physical classes were replaced with online classes, no test, and the session is completed by exams in the multiple choice MR sheets. While this transformation brings an additional responsibility to faculties, students, and the parents. There is a larger responsibility on each of one of us because engineers are the builders of the nation. We operate the core sectors of the country. The nation trusts us, the countrymen trust us. We need credible engineers, no matter whether you opt for virtual education system or physical one. The world as such currently is facing tremendous complex challenges, including environment norms, global warming, zero emissions, and changing energy scenario. And I'm facing the most because I'm working in energy industry. Our existence depends on generating skilled engineers who can work and create innovative solutions for the multi-dimensional global challenges as we are moving towards Industry 4.0. Now, the engineers to know how to apply scientific and mathematical concept for evolving solution for technological problems. To fulfill their educational objective, engineers need to pass the skill of thinking, performing, or using things in a smart and innovative way to arrive at a better solution of the problems. Under this COVID-19 pandemic, 3 consecutive batches of the students, even in the colleges of various kind, professional or schools, whatever, have been trained online without practical classes, project, industrial training, and many others beyond the classroom activities. In engineering education, classroom lectures and the practical training are intertwined to inculcate the ingenuity potential which make the students ready for the job. So it is undeniable that these engineering graduates will continue as underrepresented as an employable engineer. Also, engineers to challenge the Industry 4.0 from the very inceptions of their career. So under this situation, what is to be done? In my point of view, when I'm giving these opportunities, I would say this situation is not only vulnerable from their career point of view, but a major concern for the industrial leadership for fulfilling the dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat in the era of fourth revolution. Hence, certainly these graduates need some kind of well-planned training packages for stimulating their ingenuity and the leadership quality in line with the emerging scenario. This is also a challenge for the much awaited convergence of industrial, institutional, and government pursuits in engineering education over the spectrum ranging from polytechnic to doctoral research. Perhaps this issue may be taken up under the ambit of NEP 2020. However, when I am given this opportunity, I would like to share one possibility that comes in my mind for consideration of the stakeholder. It may be prudent that top 30 or 50 institutes in NIRF ranking may consider starting a specially designed MTech programs jointly with the industries. The program would focus on practical courses, projects, critical thinking, analytics, etc. And the students are to acquire a particular credit score within a span of say 2 to 3 years. So instead of continuous semesters, this course may allow discontinuity in between the semesters, credit transfer, and taking up the project work at industries where they are employed. And also it comes in mind that technology has developed everywhere across the world. And we can utilize the augmented reality and virtual reality either at the home or the colleges, which will be able to percolate the practical experiences despite you are at the home or at the colleges. I request the organizers to take proper initiative to draw the interest of the stakeholders towards these challenges, and let us take this initiative unitedly. I will urge not to let this serious crisis to go to waste. In other words, let us do something which we have never done earlier. I wish each one of you more power for building a brighter, sustainable future for yourself and for the coming generations. I once again thank Global Alumni Association for having me here on this forum. Wish all of you Happy New Year 2022. Thank you and all the very best. Take care, be blessed, and be safe. Thank you very much.
Professor Chattopadhyay, kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, many thanks, Ms. Mistry, for emphasizing on the impact of virtual education on the employability of the engineering graduates. You have also proposed the possible approach to augment the employability of the graduates on which I believe the organizers and the stakeholders will focus on seriously. Now I will invite Professor Amitabh De, who is one among the most popular teacher and researcher in academic community of our country. Professor Amitabh De completed his Bachelor in Engineering from Indian Institute of Engineering, Science and Technology, formerly known as BE College, and MTech and PhD degrees from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, respectively in 1989, 1991, and 1996. Later, he has spent 2 years at the Institute of Joining and Coating Technology, Technical University, Berlin, Germany, under the DAD Fellowship. He joined Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay as assistant professor in May 1998 and continued his career there to become associate professor and professor respectively in 2005 and 2009. His research area includes joining science and technology, additive manufacturing, numerical process modeling. He has served in several departmental and institute level undergraduate and postgraduate committees and as a dean academic program from March 2017 to June 2021 at IIT Bombay. He has been regularly serving as the principal reviewer, associated editor, and editor for a few key journals in the broad area of joining and metal additive manufacturing. Keeping his experience in teaching and academic administration in view, I'd like to request Professor De to illuminate us with his views on the possible gaps in the graduate outcome for engineering students taught online during the pandemic, and what kind of transformation in teaching learning may help in bridging the gap. Professor De, please. I believe you are online.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. That's
Am I audible clearly?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So thank you, Partha, very much. I first thank also the GABSU for welcoming me in this or inviting me in this particular program. With a due respect to Honorable Director, IIST erstwhile BE College, Institute functionaries and faculty members, my seniors and juniors who are present now. It's very interesting to listen to views from a current student, as well as one of our very influential alumni, I must say. And it's a good learning for me. I think it would be very nice for me to discuss rather based on what we have learned, I have learned in my position as an academic administrator, as well as a faculty member during the last 1.5 years, I would say a little more than that. So I think it would be perhaps a little easier for many of us to have this discussion if I can share my screen quickly for 2 slides I have made. I hope it is possible. Let me try.
Shreyan, I believe
I think
you can permit the screen sharing. Shreyan.
Yes, I'm just trying to give.
Yeah, I think I have been allowed already.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, can you see the screen?
Yeah, Amitabh.
Okay. So I would like to come to the point straight, and especially after listening to a very nice and critical review by Shobhit. It's very nice to hear from the other side. So these are few points I wanted to bring forward to this panel, and perhaps it can generate some discussions and we can think of some way out. If you look at overall, engineering educations are typically content centered, design oriented, and aimed at instilling critical thinking and problem solving skills. Now, over and above that, if you look at, I mean, in a generic 4-year structure of a program, hands-on training to work with equipments, instruments, materials, in a controlled laboratory setting has always been deemed to be indispensable. And that's how it has been built, the overall curriculum. This sudden conversion of engineering courses from face-to-face to online format has become, I mean, we are facing a lot of challenge, but if you look at why it is so challenging, I mean, if you look at perhaps these 4 points are becoming more and more prevalent, we do not have very well informed online learning pedagogy and instructional tools. We are just trying to learn every day new things. Students by default, they prefer to learn and believe in deeper understanding will develop only in face-to-face mode. More importantly, from the student point of view, it may not be so important from our point of view. I can still remember my student days, of course. It is very difficult to design a fair, equitable, and rigorous assessment scheme which would sort of, satisfy a common batch of students. And of course, what Shobhit has nicely mentioned, that we still have want of reliable and robust infrastructure for both students as well as faculty members. It's, I must tell students Shobhit that it's the same thing for the faculty members. I mean, there is no guarantee that there won't be any power fluctuation when I am teaching or somebody else is teaching from a different corner, or it may be from the campus itself. So the abrupt transition from this face-to-face to online instruction due to COVID has actually posed unprecedented situation. I mean, it has never been thought of, it has never been experienced. There are many things which we have experienced at least a little bit. In our college language, perhaps we say we have been booted, we have been vaccinated in some way or the other. But this is something we have never seen, what can be done. So at least what we have learned today, that any viable modes or routes that can be working good now or maybe post-pandemic must satisfy 5 key aspects: learning effectiveness, student satisfaction, faculty satisfaction, access, scale, to what scale it can be mapped, and cost, how much cost is involved. These 5 key things are very, very important for any new development that we would like to take, or any viable routes that we want to take for online education, to whatever extent it would remain, even I do not know. To make it sustainable, as my previous panelist has said, in whatever way it can be, at least in the current situation, I have tried to list down a few points. These are based on primarily my understanding. I mean, there are some takeaways for everybody. Everybody has to take part into it. For administration, very important is allocation of budgets for creating infrastructure, hardware, and software. Organize workshop involving faculty members and other stakeholders. Develop and organize a systematic repository of resources. Some faculty member develop a good course that must be available somehow so that somebody else can make use of it. Encourage culture of faculty advisors and expand that as much as possible. Become patient listeners to the faculty members as well as the students. Administration must listen. There is no other way out. Faculty advisors can help a lot to bring, talk, interact with the students even in online mode, to make them confident that they are part of the college campus, they are part of the college society, they are part of this, the overall this group. For faculty members, they must utilize institutional support and repository system very effectively, develop lectures in short segments with more encouragement to discussions, providing students a clear roadmap and instruction, and review the same regularly. Discuss with the students, how is it going, just the way it happens in face-to-face. Invent ways of evaluation in consultation with the stakeholders, in consultation with the students, faculty members. In an online mode, the situation has changed. We cannot just take a decision of a type of exam and we can just become very, strong on that. It has to be based on what students are also feeling. What is their opinion on that? put on efforts to develop home lab kits. So we cannot, I agree completely to my both the previous panelists, we cannot completely let go the laboratory. There has to be something. I'm sure in IIT Bombay, for example, we have developed many different kind of ways to sort of carry out certain experiments. For students, utilize and ask for institutional support whenever needed. They should ask. They must ask for support. Ask queries to faculty members and administrations of the institution. It's also not correct on their behalf to do some emailing and attending classes. It's not correct. It's as simple as that. So they have to ask queries, they have to attend classes in a much more in an attentive manner. Accept, move on, suggest improvements, never give up. It is their word. That they must understand. I would like to stop here and would be happy to answer any questions during the discussion more. Thank you very much. Can I answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Wish you
you,
all the best.
Amitavo. Amitavo is 89 batch, junior to me, and I am always in touch with Amitavo for different reasons. Yeah. So Amitavo has nicely elaborated various measures, thoughts which can be taken up at the institution level, at the level of faculty members, and also for the students. I believe that will be good input for the stakeholders to plan for the future. Now I'm delighted to invite Professor Shorit Kumar Dash as the last speaker in the panel. Professor Dash has pursued an illustrious career as a teacher, researcher, and administrator. Professor Dash presently is an institute professor at IIT Madras. He served as the director of IIT Rupert from 2015 to 2021. And he also served as the Dean of Academic Research from 2012 to 2015. Professor Dash has received his bachelor and master degree from Jadavpur University and PhD degree from Shambalpur University in 1994 and worked as postdoctoral fellow at University of BW Hamburg, Germany, before joining IIT Madras in 1995. He has received a number of awards and recently recognized as a topmost ranked researcher in mechanical engineering in India by Stanford University. He also received India Citation Award 2012, conferred by Thomson Reuters. He was awarded the Peabody Visiting Chair Professorship of Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Recently, he has been awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award of IIT Madras. He is also an elected fellow of National Academy of Science, India, and Indian National Academy of Engineering. His research interests include nanofluid, nanobiotechnology, multi-phase flow in microsystems, thermal hydraulics in nuclear and fuel cell systems, heat exchangers, etc. He has authored more than 250 journal and 100 conference publications and is the highest cited mechanical engineer in the country. As a last panelist, we look forward to his assessment on the efficacy of online learning methods put forward at present for engineering education. Professor Dash, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And respected President of the Alumni Association, Director of IIEST, and of course, Partha, because I always say that we, the academicians are something like mafias. We have our friends everywhere who keep on saying that we are great. So as they say great, everybody start believing that they are great. And the worst part is you also start believing that you are great. So that's exactly what Partha has done just now. But I will start my discussion with another very interesting thing. You have seen, I am not from BE College. I am from Jadavpur. And there is a myth everywhere, particularly in the academic world, that, you know, BE College and Jadavpur do not go well together. Now, I have not seen anything which is further from truth than this. In fact, everywhere where the BE College and Jadavpur people work together, they have a very, very healthy respect for each other. The reason being that they bring different perspectives. Jadavpur people are a little bit, you know, happy and a little bit occupied with many things. Sometimes I would say too many things. And BE College people, I have found, has been very focused, although they also venture into various things. For example, Professor Gautam Biswas, former director of IIT Guwahati, or Professor Indranil Manna, of former director of IIT Kanpur, has been my very good friends, and I have found them, you know, as BE College characteristics, very, very focused people, very deep into their subject. So they bring different perspectives, and I would like to bring the Jadavpur perspective probably of this. Now, the thing is that, you know, a very great management guru from Harvard died last year. His name is Clayton Christensen. He brought the theory of disruptive innovation. He said, you know, everywhere in the industry, the innovations comes from the bottom by an unknown player, and they start you know, removing the higher players slowly and finally overthrow them. For example, an unknown company called Sony came and started introducing $5 radios, and finally they overthrew General Electric. And this is the story of Toyota overthrowing Ford Motors or General Motors and so on. But Clayton has a theory, the same theory for learning also, teaching also. He said that too long, this model of captive students is there in the university system, probably 500 years, from Cambridge, Oxford, etc. You know, truly speaking, thousands of years if you can consider Nalanda, etc. Now, this, according to him, in the new learning system, it will be like you do not read and stay in one place. You pick up credits from different places, different universities in future. And maybe then you say, well, I think I am ready for a degree. Ask the 3 institutions or 5 institutions to give me a degree. Now, this can be the learning model for future. You may listen to Clayton's YouTube lecture in which he has given it. Now, that looks very interesting. But then what I have found that people have started putting that model as the online learning model. Now, here is a problem. As a model of collecting credits, at a model of learning from different places, philosophically is very progressive idea. But if you convert that of a model which will be devoid of experience, because very easily you can connect online with various institutions, various places, etc., trying to replace Clayton Christensen's model by an online model, you will be in a soup. And that's what is happening in many cases here. And I'll be talking about that for the next 5-6 minutes. The first thing that I would like to tell, let us identify what online teaching can do and what it cannot do. What it can do, the greatest thing it can do is something which is emerging, something for which standard texts are not available. Online learning can do wonders. For example, AI, artificial intelligence. For example, quantum computing. For example, net zero cities. For example, renewable energies. For example, net zero buildings. If you want to know the things which are still emerging, where standard texts are not available, the best way is to take an online course. because it will be concise. It will give you initial ideas. You, after listening to online courses, you will come to know what you have to read. What is the place where you have to concentrate? So in that sense, online learning is very good for these kinds of ideas. The second thing is, there are areas in which the information is very, very large. For example, cultural diversity, government policies. Now, these are oceans. So where to start and where to end, people do not know. So a short online course or online lecture, couple of lectures, can give you an idea where to start, where to go, how to do it. It's very good for that kind of a thing. The third one is a gap in knowledge. See, a person may be knowing the whole thing, but feels that I'm not so confident in one part of it. It happened to me. See, when I was in research of, specific thermal systems, I felt my fluid mechanics is good, but not up to the mark. I went to some lectures of a very reputed person from Stanford University's web lectures, took the 30 lectures, and that helped me immensely. So it can happen to professional, it can happen to even academicians or researchers. So it can fill up the gaps. And finally, the most important thing that you can do by online thing is inspiring people by the lectures of the leaders. And that has become very, very easy today. Previously, getting a busy person from country itself was difficult for convocation. As a director of IIT Ropar, I had a lot of problem in getting good people. But now Nobel laureates are available because everything is online. You are not to spend time on traveling, staying, and all that. What it requires is finally half an hour, 1 hour, 45 minutes. So everybody is available. So you can get great people, you can get leaders of industry, you can get leaders of academics and research, you can get Nobel laureates, you can get company CEOs, you can get Pawan Goenka to speak on auto industry. You can get Ratan Tata to speak on entrepreneurship. So this is the other advantage of online education. You can get the best. But what the online education cannot do? Firstly, as a teacher, the concept-based subjects, which creates the base of a student, you cannot impart properly in online courses. This is my experience. This is the experience of many of my colleagues. Subjects like thermodynamics, subjects like mechanics, subjects like electromagnetics, subjects like algorithms, you cannot teach online. Why? Because you need to get instant feedback. It's not only the first bench students. What is the middle bench student or the last bench student doing? Is anything entering into his ears or in his brain? Now, unless and until you get that feedback, your teaching will become only at one level which you do not know. Whether a particular thing you have to repeat or not, you do not know, because you are not able to see, you are not able to look to the eyes of the students in most of the cases. And so concept-based subject is a casualty. They are very, very bad in teaching in online education. Hands-on experience, everybody understands that, practicals and all that. But in practical also, it is not the skill which is the toll of the online system. It's the other thing, the power of observation. It's one of the major things of in-hand experiences, and which is a big toll when you take online education. The power of observation of a physical system cannot be same as the power of observation through a mentored system. Because when we show, suppose we have got virtual experiment, even in virtual experiments, we show the best. But what a person needs to see is the worst also. And that is never shown. So the observational power. But I think the main casualty are not these. The main casualty are another two things. First, the approach of solving a problem. Now, this does not come online. What do you mean by approach of solving a problem? You see, if you look at the Indian knowledge, ancient knowledge, Vedas and Upanishads. To explain them, there were Sankhya, Yoga, Advaita Vedanta. There are many approaches to go to the same. Similarly, in the scientific world, to get to a problem, you can get into numerically, analytically, experimentally, a mixture of that. Various schools of thoughts are there. Even in physics, there is a school of string theory, which is completely drubbed by another set of people. So these schools will never be generated online. It requires physical interaction. It requires, exchange of ideas, even silent thinking of people together. Now, this is something which it cannot give, the online teaching cannot give. And what is done in online, instead of an excellent idea, you try to show more. Because you see, I have seen many people, instead of 20 slides in 20 minutes, bring 70 slides. Because they think by showing more, they can make it much more clear, which is not true. Quantity can never replace quality. You see, you hear in television nowadays these top, our heroes advertisement, two teachers, double advantage. What we need is not 2 teachers. What we need is 1 good teacher. And this is what one has to understand. Online education in a large extent is trying to replace quality by quantity, which cannot be done. And the final thing, what about character? There is a saying that students do not remember what you teach. They remember what you are. And this is very true for a teacher. It's teacher's attitude, teacher's approach that always influences the student. And those attitudes and influence doesn't come within the classroom alone. It comes outside the classroom. It comes in informal interaction. It cannot be done with a camera on your face. You can call a student to your chamber and talk to him or her about his or her problems and try to understand. By that, not only the student learns, the teacher learns. And that process will be missing. The building of character of not only the student, the building of character of the teacher is also inhibited by online education. And hence, I would say online education is a good tool. Let's use it. And when there are no other alternatives like pandemic, yes, use it extensively, but never get mesmerized by that. It cannot replace the real learning, which has to be from man to man, from human being to human being, and not only from human being to human being, from nature to human being. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dash. Thank you, Shorit, for a very illuminating lecture. In your lecture, there is a note of logical convergence between online and offline for the best teaching methodology. We had perspective from different angles, from a student, from industry, from a teacher, and from someone who had been best teacher, best researcher, and best administrator. The speakers have provided very thoughtful insight on the key issues, which will provide effective guidance on the assessment of merits of offline and online teaching learning method, not only in dealing with crises like pandemic, but also to make the current practice more flexible without any compromise with the capability and ingenuity of the engineering graduates. I take this opportunity on behalf of the organizers to convey most sincere thanks to all the panelists for finding their time to be present in this panel and providing their views on the issues which is call of the time. Thank you very much. I believe the panel discussion has been completed within the given schedule of 45 minutes. Now I will hand over to Kasturi. Kasturi, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your for the detailed discussion, and thanks to all the esteemed panelists, the esteemed guests